everyone, and welcome to another episode of the HLTB podcast. I'm your host, Paula. Joined as always by Josh, or Avatage over there.
What's up, everybody?
And today we are talking about the things Josh finished, but nobody retired, and the things we've been playing recently. Today's topic is the kind of like dual game of the month thing we have going on. So the game of the month, Valiant Hearts, and the Fool's Choice, Hatoful Boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll finish off the episode with the guest again, where Josh quizzes me on a game today. Hopefully, I'll get it right on the first one because
Hopefully
I really need. I really want more leeway for me to pick a game for you to play. So yeah,
we shall see. We shall see.
We shall see. What have you beaten? You have many things there. What happened?
I kind of focused on beating a few things that I had already started. So some of these I have definitely spoken about at length before, so I'm not going to talk about them much today. But a couple of others I've, started and finished between last time and this time. Just a couple of short games. But the first one I finished was Botany Manor, which I did speak about last week. And I was almost finished last week, I think.
Oh.
And so I then went and did the last puzzle, or bloomed the last blooms, which were actually the very final puzzles were a lot harder and more involved than the previous ones. Like there's a good ramp up of difficulty. And I really liked it as a game. I definitely highly recommend it to people who like kind of cozy puzzle games, which do actually require a bit of thinking, and you have to kind of read stuff and maybe even take some notes and then refer to it later, because it's the kind of thing where after you've kind of found a whole bunch of clues and everything in an area and you go to solve the puzzle of the area, you kind of go, oh, I remember they mentioned something about that in that book that I read before, but you have to kind of go back and read it again to find out what the actual detail was. So it's worth taking notes along the way. It's the story's kind of satisfying as well, because other than it just being a fun puzzle game, there is a little bit of a story, which I kind of alluded to last time as well, about the women in the family that you're kind of following in the footsteps of, I suppose, attempting to essentially become botanists and get into the field of biology in a time and place where it was very male dominated, and all the men who are the scientists kind of go, no, you can't do that. You're a woman, blah, 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 blah. So
yeah. I also like a lot of time whenever a woman was the one like doing research and doing discoveries, the work was attributed to a male.
Yeah. So this is fun because the women in this story essentially kind of part of what you're doing is you play the story and you solve the puzzles and make these fictional flowers kind of bloom, is you're filling out a book, and this book becomes kind of their research document, for want of a better word, kind of like, Origin of Species or something, but it's their kind of botanist book on these particular flowers. So that's, minor spoilers, but it's not really essential to the game. They kind of succeed in the end and, open up their own school of botany, and, everyone's happy and cool. So it's a satisfying ending with a nice kind of feel-good story. And yeah, it's just a really cozy kind of puzzle game. And I very much enjoyed it. And I wish, like always with these games, I wish there was more of it. Or at least can't wait till the next one comes along to fill that kind of gap, because I just like a cozy puzzle game. It's always nice to do. I also finished I finished a number of routes for Lovers All Around, which is the FMV Chinese dating sim that I was playing. And, it was a lot of fun, even though it was kind of a bit cheesy and a bit janky, and the writing's a bit questionable. But I have to say, for anyone playing, Lin Yu Chin is the win. If you didn't go down that route, you're missing out. But I kind of went back afterwards and played some alternate scenes and played some change some decisions and that kind of thing. Because I think I mentioned it last week as well. Like, one thing this game does really well is at any point you can kind of back out and see a visual kind of graph of all the branching paths for the narrative and decisions you've made and all that kind of thing. So it's really easy to jump back to another scene, make a different decision, and see what happens after that. There are things that don't work with that because this is a dating sim where you kind of gain favor with the people you're trying to date over time. So if you've already ruined your relationship with one girl, going back a couple of scenes isn't going to fix it. Even if you make a different decision, you need to start the whole game over again so that you can build up that relationship from the start, kind of thing. But it's still fun to go see the extra decisions and stuff. And there's some funny ones as well in there. Like, there's this one bit towards the end, which, isn't really giving anything away, but you end up in hospital. And as you wake up, you kind of look over and there's this like big fat guy and he's just kind of like lying on his side, smiling at you. And then you turn around and all 4 of the women who you're trying to date are there to see you. And that's at one point where you have to kind of choose who do you want to go with. But you can also choose the patient in the bed next to you, just as a funny thing. And he's this dude who's just like, oh, I'll be your mate, sure. And so it's kind of it's very fun and entertaining in that sense because it's silly enough and doesn't take itself too seriously to still be kind of a bit of a fun time, even if it's not the most deep and meaningful kind of story and or game. But I'm still debating whether I'm going to go back and do some other routes because I've kind of seen most of the routes, but there's a couple where I haven't seen any because I didn't even put any points into that along the way. So I'm thinking I might give it one other quick playthrough with like skipping scenes I've already seen, just to see what happens with some of the other options. I also finished Overload, which I have spoken about a lot and is the Descent spiritual successor that I've been playing. A little bit disappointed in it because the progression was essentially just... I kind of alluded to it last time as well. Like it got harder by just making everything making that number go up 1 kind of thing without really adding any kind of interesting complexity or anything like that. Basically, every level you got a new enemy, which was a bit harder than the last, and there was another objective which was a little bit more difficult than the last as well. And so, I think I used the example last time of in some levels you have to like destroy a power generator at the center of the mine and it makes everything explode. In later levels you still have to do that, but this time there's a shield that's covering and protecting the power generator. So you've got to go find a couple of other generators first to take them out to disable the shield, to then go take out the generator. And it just kind of builds up like that where, okay, next time there's a shield, but the shield generators have got shields, so you need to go find generators for those shields. And it's just, kind of in a boring way, it got harder and harder. And towards the end, a couple of levels kind of did something which I really hate, which is have like time-based puzzles with skill triggers. So there's this bit where you're going through these mines and you have to kind of shoot a trigger, which then starts a timer because it opens a door somewhere else. And after the time counts down, the door closes. But then it gets more complex because there's another one where you have to shoot a trigger, go through the open door. While you're doing that, shoot another trigger for the next door after that door. But the timing is really, really tight, so you have to do it kind of as quick as possible without missing to get through. And that's cool because it's a bit of skill-based stuff, and I know that's probably a lot of fun for a lot of people, but it just doesn't really I don't know, it just doesn't really float my boat too much. That sort of time-based things I've never really gotten excited about. So yeah, I'm happy I played it though. I still can't remember how I picked it up. It must have been in a bundle or something. So, I forget how much I paid for it or anything like that. So I can't really judge it on that sense. But I would say if you're a fan of Descent and you have that nostalgia pang, it's worth playing. If not, yeah, maybe have a look. But if it doesn't look too exciting, then give it a miss. I also played a game called Open Roads, which is an Annapurna Interactive published game. And I say that because it's so Annapurna interactive, it hurts. It's a feel-good narrative adventure between a daughter and her mum, who, for the very first scene, you're moving out of your house, so you've got to kind of pack up your room, and you play the daughter, and you're not quite sure where you're going to be moving to and stuff. You're going to stay with friends first and blah blah blah, because there's a bit of a question mark about where you're going. But then you find stuff in your house as you're packing it up that kind of hints at the fact that your grandma had like an affair with some dude, and so you and your mum kind of have a bit of a laugh about it, and you decide, hey, we're going to go on a bit of a road trip, and we're going to go up to grandma's old house and look through her stuff and see if we can find anything else about this dude. And so you do. And meanwhile, you're kind of bonding with your mum because your parents have gotten divorced, and you still talk with your dad, and he seems nice and everything, but obviously they've got issues that they haven't told you about. So it's that kind of story where it's all very, very, very story heavy and narrative focused. And it's about relationships and, yeah, this obnoxious teenage girl basically learning about her mum's history and her grandma's history, and kind of actually realizing that they're real people as well, and they're not just old people telling her to shut up kind of thing. So they have lives and, you know, desires and thoughts and missed opportunities just like everyone else. So I liked it because I like that kind of game again. Like, you know, not something I'd necessarily rush out and say it was amazing. The art is kind of interesting because there's this weird, almost like 1970s looking animation style that they use, and art style for the characters especially. And so when you're talking, they do kind of like a half talking thing, like it's not fully lip synced, but there's like a little bit of movement, and it works. It kind of is a bit of a vibe as well, but after a while I was just like, I'd like a little bit more. But, you know, that's just me being picky. Ultimately, though, it was a nice game. It was a feel-good game. It wasn't necessarily one that I would, I don't know, I didn't get as excited as I have with other narrative games, like, other Annapurna games which I've played, which have kind of stuck with me a little bit longer. But it's very Annapurna, because it is that kind of, you know, moody, teenage, arty kind of narrative-focused game. So worth a try if you're into that sort of thing. It's on Game Pass, which is why I played it anyway. So, yeah. I also finished Gemini Rue, which I was playing. This is the Wadget Eye point-and-click game for anyone who's played any other Wadget Eye point-and-clicks. Really good point-and-clicks. Like, as a company, they make good point-and-clicks anyway. This one was no different. It had lots and lots to do, and lots of story, and lots of characters, and lots of interesting mysteries and stuff to solve. And the ending was kind of cool. I don't want to say anything to spoil it, obviously, because it is really good. But let's just say that after all the work you put in, and after all the jumping between different characters and exploring different places and figuring out the mystery behind everything, it at least comes to a satisfying end. And a bit of a surprising one as well, which is kind of cool. But yeah, in the world of point and clicks, I think they, like Wadget Eye as a company, they've got a definite style that they stick with. Like, they use the same engine, they use the same sort of art on every game. Each game is perhaps made by different people as well, but they kind of stick to a formula that works, and it actually does work. So, you know, they are good fun to play, and this one was just as fun as anyone else. A game I'd never heard of, but it did appear on Game Pass, was a game called Nower, Play With Your Food.
Is that going on Game Pass?
Oh, not on Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, sorry.
Oh, okay.
So I played that on PS5, yeah. And I kind of hate games like this, because it's kind of fun, but I hate it because it's just basically like a physics sandbox of shit. Like, the whole idea of the game is that you're playing with food, and that's about it. Like, you have different buttons that on your controller that are assigned to moving things in different ways or messing with gravity or that kind of thing. And you just play through a series of scenes, which are different scenes of food. So one of them might be just a bowl of soup, but you start off with just the bowl, and as you press buttons, different food falls from the sky and lands in the bowl. If you hold down other buttons, it'll like pour noodles into the bowl. If you hold down other buttons, it'll like throw heaps and heaps of forks at the bowl. But it's just this kind of like 3D modeled physics simulation kind of scene where nothing else happens. And I kind of hate that because it's cool and everything and it kind of looks fun, but there's no real point to it. There's no real there's just no point to it, I guess. And I'm up for open-ended games. I'm up for abstract games and stuff, but I don't really get the point of a game like this. And it took like no time at all to kind of play through. And I'm sure I missed out on things. Like if I did different combinations and this kind of shit, I probably could have unlocked secret levels and things. But yeah, it's just not my bag. Like I'm glad I didn't pay for it. Let's put it that way. Although I paid for it with my time, and that always kind of annoys me. But
Yeah.
you know.
A quick like video over here. Since I was like, hey, I haven't heard about that one on Game Pass. I went and checked on Game Pass, and and Hyrule Hollywood is out. And that's all I have to
Yes,
say because that game looks cool as heck.
I have downloaded it and I haven't started playing it yet because I really want to. But yeah, the only other game then I completed was essentially the single player campaign for Street Fighter V, which again was the weird have to download it as a DLC campaign, which I don't know why, but okay, cool. It was actually quite lengthy as well. The story is batshit crazy and makes no sense, but that's okay because it's just loose reasons for people to fight each other every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
The one criticism I probably would have of it is that all the cutscenes and everything, there's just too many of them. Like they go on for quite a while sometimes in between fights. And call me crazy, when I'm playing a fighting game, I want to do lots of fighting rather than watching exposition, especially
No
batshit
shit.
doesn't make sense exposition. So, you know, I don't mind a bit of trying to add some story in there. Like I really like the Mortal Kombat campaigns where they have like cutscenes and stuff to go from fight to fight. But this one is like they have a series of like 3 or 4 cutscenes which are all about 4 or 5 minutes each that you can skip, but what's the point of playing the single player if you're going to skip the cutscenes kind of thing? And so I just kind of watched them all, and especially towards the end, some of them just go on forever. And you're just like, can I just please fight something now? Please let me.
Can I do the thing the game is supposed to be doing, please?
Yeah, like fighting games don't do much, and it still didn't let me do that very well. So, you know, as good a fighting game as Street Fighter is, like, yes, it's a phenomenal series, and you know, there's a reason it's one of the most popular fighting games in the world. But yeah, single player campaign, absolute dog shit at the end of the day, and I almost would say don't bother unless you're like me and you happen to have a copy and you're only interested in playing it single player. Because I'm just not into playing fighting games in multiplayer because I get my ass kicked every single time to the point that it's not actually fun. I don't even feel like I'm improving. I'm just, I get stun locked for the entire match and then, you know, beaten. So, yeah. That was my fun with Street Fighter V. I'm glad I finished it though and, you know, got to see what the campaign ended up being. Even if it wasn't that great. But yeah, that's what I've completed in the last week or so. Some good ones in there. Like, I definitely recommend Botany Manor, Gemini Rue, even Open Roads, if you're into that kind of thing. And Lovers All Around is a good laugh. Again, if that sounds like something that couldn't be entertaining for you. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty straightforward. But yeah, Paula, you haven't completed anything, but you have been playing a few things that you've been playing last week as well. So why don't you regale us with your latest tales of your gaming adventures?
Yeah, just before that, I'm gonna like go cry in a corner because Hollywood is uh it has an install size of 51 gigabytes, and I'm like, holy crap, that's like half of the space I have on my on my SSD. So I'm crying here. I did
Yep.
uninstall Palworld, which released whooping 30 gigabytes, so I might be able to make space for Hollywood in my life.
Yeah, I was surprised at how big that is as well, because yeah, I was not expecting a 50 gigabyte thing.
Yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense in a way because of how the assets are done, since they model.
like stop motion and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, they
Anyway.
made everything in real life, but like scanned it
Yeah.
and did magic, because that is wizardry. Like whatever they did is wizardry. Anyway,
We'll be able to talk
I
about that sometime in the near future, I'm sure.
yeah. So I've been playing Mini Metro, and I let me check real quick, because I did made like a couple of notes over here. So right now I only been playing on 3 maps so far, which are London, Paris, and New York. For London, at this point in time, I managed to reach over 1,800 points, which is a lot.
Goodness.
I don't know how I did that, and I've been trying to replicate it, but I haven't been able to. Paris, it's kind of like a more difficult map. As I said, there's like a couple of little islands in the middle of the river, because, of course, they have to make your life harder. But I still managed to score about 1,600 points.
No.
For the New York map, though, I managed to go through that 1,000 point threshold. Because New York is hard as balls. Like, holy crap. I did get lucky in one regard, that is that the stations just kept popping up like at either side of either of the rivers, but they didn't pop up like north of any of the other rivers. So even though I wasn't lucky in the sense that I didn't get any bridges for the longest time, and I have to rely on making the lines like longer and longer, and trying to supply everyone with trains and wagons and stuff like that, I was able to keep the lines running for quite a long time. At some time, I got overwhelmed, like really overwhelmed. Like, I don't know what happened there. But it turns out that 3 lines aren't enough, even if you have like a stupid amount of trains on each line. I did get a 4th line with a couple of bridges, but at that point, it was too late. So yeah, still I like to be able to just jump into Mini Metro from time to time and do a couple of runs. Since my boyfriend hasn't played like the other lines, the other maps, we just made an agreement that we will tackle like each map for the first time like together, and then try to outscore each other. So that's
Cool.
why I've only been playing like those 3 particular maps to death. But anyway, it has been like my not idle game, because you still need to pay attention to it, but it's kind of like the game you play while listening to a podcast, or like watching an episode of Scott the Walls, or like just watching something else. When you like the kind of thing that if you need to do something while you're listening to something, it just does that thing for you, pretty much.
Nice.
The other game that I've been playing too is Bemba, even though I played like half an hour again. So kind of like the difficulty went from 1 to 11 in some ways. Because like the first 2 recipes that I made were like very guided, and even though there was like as much here and as much there on the recipe book, it was still like very easy to understand. On the next stage, it was like, okay, we have this stupid amount of ingredients, and Memba has to start like, she has to try to remember how her mother used to do things, mainly because for what one particular part, the notebook was pretty much useless. So yeah. So I have like notes on, okay, so she said tomatoes can have to go last and onion had to go first. So let's try to piece together everything. And I have like a lot of notes like in my little journal to try to make sense of whatever she was trying to remember. The story, I really don't want to spoil the story, but I'm at that point where the kid has to go to university.
Yep.
And it still kind of makes me sad because the kid wants to be normal, are like accepted by his peers. And maybe it's because of my neurodivergency, but I don't find anything more boring than trying to be normal and fit in. Like I tried like when I was 12 maybe, but then realized it wasn't my thing. So it was uh kind of like shocking trying to see him try to fit in like so hard.
Yeah.
But I guess different people go to through that specific phase at different parts in life.
I think as well, like, because this is kind of an immigrant story as well. So, you know, and without spoiling anything, like, I'm sure like a lot of immigrants, as a new kid in school and everything, he probably feels like a bit of an outsider and like he doesn't necessarily want to be treated differently or anything like that. He just wants to kind of be accepted and make friends and do all that kind of stuff, you know. And I feel like that's where he's coming from with that kind of wanting to fit in.
Yeah, like I guess that kind of fitted in is like, hey, I may be from another country, but I'm one of you guys. And it's not like he was born in another country. He is by all effects and purposes American because he was born sorry, Canadian because he was born in Canada. Uh but his I guess his culture is the one factor that people around him won't ignore. Um, so in that case, it kind of hurts because it's like, hey, I was born here like everyone else, but why are you treating me so differently? Like just because of how my culture is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Which it kind of reminds me of how Not Tonight went
Yep.
because of how to my understanding, the protagonist of the game was English through and through because they were born in England and all that jazz, but because of Woolcraft and their parents being like kind of like deported and losing that citizenship, they lost that citizenship too and was treated like an outsider by everyone else, which is kind of it sucks.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, like I do understand when you have that glaring difference with everyone else wanting to fit in. Like you're like the kid is trying his darnest to try to almost convince himself as much as he's trying to convince others that he's part of the group and there's nothing different about him.
Yeah, and I think in Venba especially, like the tension is between him trying to, you know, grow up and live in Canada and fit in and, you know, basically just make his life easier, for want of a better word. But while his parents are kind of, I guess if you look at it from his perspective, they're kind of working against that because they're trying to hold on to their culture and not lose the things that make them who they are. And, you know, those cultural differences which mean a lot to them, like not to lose, even if it does make them different, you know?
Yeah, in particular, Vemma, because she in particular is the one that is who's sticking the most to what to her culture. Well, the parent, like the father, I don't remember the name of. I'm so sorry, but he's trying his best to adapt, so he can get like a job. But for example, the language barrier seems to be the thing that's holding him back a lot. Plus, that he doesn't have like proper working experience for the thing he's applying to.
Yeah.
Which, well, it's super
Yeah.
chicken like. So
Well,
yeah,
and that's why I think this is a brilliant game, because it really does kind of tap into all those real life things that happen.
yeah,
Because like I have a friend who is Indian, or originally born and raised in India,
mm-hmm.
and lives in Australia now, and immigrated with his family. And he has a engineering degree and is a very intelligent person. He used to like do civil engineering, like building bridges and stuff in India. And he came over to Australia, and because his qualification and experience basically wasn't recognized, he delivers pizzas for a living,
Oh,
which I think is not only a huge loss for Australia as far as the things he could do, but just a loss for him as well, like trying to, live his life to the best he can, and do the best he can for his family. But even though he has already studied and he's got these qualifications and all his experience and stuff, having immigrated, one of the challenges is then, having that recognized. And yeah, as I say, he works for Domino's delivering pizzas, and he's a fucking smart dude, for one of a, to put it bluntly. But it's partly a racial kind of difference or a cultural difference, or so. I don't know what it is. I hope it's not just racism or something, but it's difficult for him to find work that he's qualified for because he hasn't had any experience in Australia, and it's only been in India, which we obviously don't know anything about as a whole, kind of thing. So yeah.
yeah, which is a shame, mainly because, to my understanding, um, like physics and math and computer stuff oriented education, like us in college/university education in India, is very good. Like,
Yeah.
uh, but like I could understand, for instance, whenever you have to like, as doctors have to take like this test on their
Mm.
country, to see if they're qualified to pretty much be a doctor on their country. I could understand that kind of thing because of how different countries manage like health and stuff in different ways, and that have different standards for it.
Yeah.
And I could understand, for example, is I don't know anything like about Australia, about how tectonics are like stuff is, or they're like, do any natural disasters like in particular are like important enough, or like um happen often enough that you have to have like your buildings built a certain way, for example.
Yeah, pretty much. Like bushfire is our thing. Um, so everything burns in Australia, basically.
Oh,
So like, every summer we have massive fires, and that's kind of our. Well, it depends where you go though, because we're such a big country as well. Like we're, like America, we're a big country, and so up the north they get cyclones and tornadoes and big storms and flooding and everything, and kind of down my way it's more fires and yeah, fire mostly. So so yeah, there are different regulations and stuff for sure, but
yeah,
aside from all of that, I think it's just an interesting. I think, to get back to Vember, like that's half the reason I think Vember is such a good game, because I think it really taps into all these very real experiences for immigrants that maybe we don't know about if we're not immigrants, because we don't come up against them. So I think it's a
yeah.
fantastic game for that sort of stuff.
True, true. Thinking about it, I still feel like there should be like a way to say like, hey, we validate your degree from this country if you go through this kind like course in particular or something like that. Um, that you can tell like you really have to, if you're like a construction engineer in Chile, you really have to know what are the do and don'ts in Chile because earthquakes.
Mm.
But yeah, like that is it. Sorry, I went like in a tangent because it's kind of like fascinating to me, like how
Yeah.
different countries treat like different degrees like in different ways. Like
Mm.
I do understand that having a specific degree in a particular field is doesn't always translate well, like with the regulations of the country that you're
Yeah.
immigrating to. But I feel like there should be like a thing you could do so your um your degree and your knowledge is kind of like validated in the country you're immigrating
Mm.
to, because
Well,
otherwise you're
it's like my friend I mentioned, who's an engineer. Like he knows how to be an engineer. Like he
yeah
knows engineering.
yeah
I don't because I'm not an engineer. But fair enough. Maybe if there was a short kind of bridging kind of course, as in like, here's how you be an engineer in Australia, as opposed to in India, perhaps. I can understand that kind of stuff being
yeah
a requirement because there's different regulations, there's different, things to consider and all that kind of stuff. But it just kind of shocks me and appalls me that someone who has worked that hard and has that much education
and
can
knowledge and stuff like that.
basically has to deliver pizzas to support his family. And I just think that's a
Yeah,
tragedy.
yeah, like you went that far, you work a lot, but you can use that knowledge, and it's stupid
Yeah. Well, and I
for
think
lack of a
that's,
yeah
I agree. And I think that's definitely a common thing that immigrant families probably do experience because a lot of skills are not necessarily transferable, or maybe there is just some basic racism that people think if you did get your degree somewhere overseas, maybe that's not as good as if you got it here, or I don't know, any number of
yeah.
things. But yeah, Venba, good game.
Been a good game, yeah. So yeah. I think I'm at the part where the kid like leaves. That's all I can say for now. But anyway, let's go talk about Pretty Boys on Northern Ivar comments. Because otherwise I'll just be mad here.
Yeah.
Because I do get mad about things that I found, not just.
Oh, it's ridiculously stupid. But and not to, go back into the same tangent, but that's why I think games like Vemba are really good and really important. And I loved playing it because it tells these stories, which, a lot of people probably don't even know that these stories exist
Yeah.
unless they encounter them directly, or if they play a game like this and kind of learn about, hey, these are some of the challenges that immigrants might face. And it's not just racism, it's other stuff as well. So, you know, it's fantastic in that sense. And I think a brilliant game because of it. Because, it talks about that kind of real life stuff, which needs to be talked about. So, anyway.
So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I could go on
Um
forever, but I won't.
yeah. Speaking about different walks in life, I'm still playing Northern Ivar Comments, and as I said, or as I thought I said, I was very sure like that most of the routes were like very similar with little to no difference like in the grand scheme of things. I was wrong to some extent. Like, okay, there's like a couple of events that happen regardless of the route you're playing. Like there's
Yeah,
like this dream sequence that always happens, and there's like a specific encounter that my bad, not a specific encounter, but like a weak notice of, hey, we're this is the last stop before we go to this specific encounter.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, in the case, I think like last time I was on Otomare's route, on with Nanami as a protagonist, and uh, I kind of like how Nanami and Otomaru decide to be wingman and wingwoman for another couple of couples, for lack of a better word, in the game, especially since one of them, like, this, like, Otomaru, Nanami, and Itsuki is like one of the guys from Mikoto's route. They're all friends. So when Itsuki got paired up with Mikoto, and Itsuki has a thing for Mikoto, but doesn't know how to convey that. Pretty much like Otome and Nanami take it as a responsibility to try to help their friend out, which is like the studious thing because they're like doing things from the shadows, and in a way, it's kind of funny because in the end, it's Itsuki and Mikoto, the ones that help them out in the end. In this specific case, okay, so I said how Nanami has this power to erase memories, and that she's kind of like battling with something in her past about erasing memories, which hasn't like really been fully fleshed out yet, though it has been hinted at.
Okay.
But in this route, she has to come face to face with her power, maybe being like something dangerous, even like for the ones she loves. In the case that the one she loves is being held as a fucking hostage.
Cool.
So in that regard, the way she and Otome end up dealing with that is getting the fuck away from here. Because their powers combine. Like I have said that the dream sequence is because one of the characters has like the power to kind of like implant dreams on someone's mind, while
Right.
the other while Tomaro's power is to communicate telepathically to a number of people. So they combine the powers to give everyone like the same dream in a way. So they kind of like talk about this, and it's like, hey, fuck, I can. Nanami says like, I can erase people's memories, but I have to touch them. But if I combine my power with Otomaru's, that barrier is no longer there. And it's like, this is kind of dangerous. Let's run the fuck away. uh, so yeah, that's like an over simplification of the thing that's going on here, but it pretty much ends up with them running away and never meeting the world,
Right.
as you call them. One of the other characters' powers gets like fully revealed in this route, in this case Masamune, who is able to see a character's past, and I guess present thoughts to a degree, but still he has to touch them to be able to see their past.
Right.
So I got the happy ending, and then I went back to playing as Koharu, and this time around I picked Sentry Ichinosa's route. Now I have like the entire breakdown of who is with whom in this route, but holy crap. Senri in particular is kind of like a hikikomori. He doesn't really like being around people, mainly because he says that people have expectations about of other people, and if those expectations aren't met, then they get sad. But he also has like other reasons for not wanting to be around people. But anyway, so pretty much it's about Koharu trying to slowly break into that kind of like barrier that Senri has put around himself. And Koharu being Koharu and being like the very naive, friend-seeking, very sweet girl that she is, she manages to just do that. again, we get to that dream sequence because at some point she says something that the guy doesn't like, but whatever. And it's very funny because, okay, so I think I referenced this, but each of the characters, like each of the girls, has like like a fairy tale assigned to them during the dream sequence.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, Koharu is Snow White, and in her dream, Kakeru is not the witch, is the poison apple, because why not?
Yep.
Masamune is the prince that comes to take her away, and Sende is supposed to be one of the dwarfs, but the dwarfs are being played by Hiyokos, which are like the little robot chickens that help around the ship. So you
Right.
have this little sad blue Hiyoko little chicken that cannot speak, so he cannot say, "Hey, it's me." And the dream is kind of funny because like Koharu cannot talk either because Itsuki did something, of course. So they have to try to communicate without using words,
Mm-hmm.
which I found kind of ingenious, if I say so myself. Anyway, um, yeah, and in the case of Nanami, which I already played her story, she's Little Red Riding Hood,
Yep.
and I think Otomaru is supposed to be like the grandmother, like he's the one like waiting for the goods to be delivered. Akito is the wolf, and Ron is the hunter.
Nice.
Mikoto's dream is a special thing which I'll talk about more when I get to her route. But anyway, so I still find hilarious that that only Koharu kind of knows how the dreams go, like how the stories go. But Nanami and Mikoto has like a major misconception based on her little um explanation of the dream because Nanami is a shinobi. She can be like very sneaky, very quick, and she can fight with kunai. So she pretty much took this as a mission. It's like, oh, I have to deliver something to my grandma. Okay. Oh, and the wolf is the enemy. Okay. Okay to that. I have to kill the wolf. And it's like, no. Well, in the meantime, Mikoto's like, oh, I have to find this glass slipper. Well, I'm embarking on an adventure. Bye, bitches. And it's like, this is not how it works. But anyway, so okay, the 3 months went by, and they kind of land near a place where there's disputed territory. And this is like the first real snippet of a war being like brewing.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, the world was supposed to be the organization keeping peace, but someone or has been selling weapons to people and tried to cause chaos. We meet that someone in question that happens to be someone related to Kaharu's past. So this someone in particular very much like not brainwashes. No, that's not the word, but pretty much like persuades her to be that she is able to keep peace by pretty much like planting fear with fire and destroying things because of course the oppressors are are the bad guys and we haven't done anything wrong. Ignore the kid with a gun over here. Um So yeah, it ends up in like that they have to recover Koharu before she's far too gone. And then things happen. They cannot meet the world, but they do have a mission to like destroy the weapons that are like scattered through the world. So that's like after like they finish the main story, and the after story is like, okay, we're destroying the weapons that we have over here. So they go from town to town recovering the weapons, which is kind of interesting because again, this is the first time where you actually see conflict, and the reason the world sends you in this mission in the first place is because conflict is brewing past the point they are able to do anything by themselves.
Right.
So yeah, that aside, I started the fourth route by this point on the game. And that route is well, I just got to that route, but I'm playing as Mikoto this time around, and I love her. Like she has always been like my favorite from the three, mainly because she's kind of sassy, and I love that. I love that in my protagonist. But anyway, the fact is that she has the power to put barriers, very big barriers around people and protect them from pretty much anything. Given that she's like in good health, because the barriers kind of like reflect how she's feeling. So if she's sick, for example, her barriers will be frail. To say something. And the thing is that Mikoto has like one of the routes locked at the beginning of the game. So the recommended first route for Mikoto is Sakuya. Sakuya is her childhood friend, and he has the power to see the future of divination. Though Mikoto tends to say that he's wrong because reasons. But he does have something like they were looking like around the chip for more rooms since Koharu and Surata like just arrived to the chip. And after playing a little bit with Surata, he said like, "Hey, which animal do you think about when I say there's a campfire, like, or a bonfire? Like, which animal stays like warms itself by the fire?" And Surata was like, "Well, a hiyoko, because it sounds like hinoyoko, which is by the fire, pretty much."
Mm-hmm.
And it so happens that the free room in the ship that ended up being assigned to Sorata was the Hiyoko room. So it was like, okay, this guy knows something. Um. So yeah. Um. Like Sakuya seems to be trying to protect Mikoto in the sneaky ways too. But I'm not really sure like what he's I mean, I kind of know what his general deal is because I already played the game, but if I were playing the game for the first time around, I still wouldn't be quite sure of what his deal is. So yeah, I'm very looking forward to this one. I know for sure that this is a game that my Otome friend in real life already played, and I know this is like her favorite character because she's a sucker for the childhood friend drama, stuff like that. So yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, that's everything with Nerd 9. I'm sorry I went like too fucking long, but I finished 2 routes and I'm on another one. So yeah.
That's cool.
What have you been playing, Josh? Please take the microphone away from me.
Well,
I beg you.
I got back into Horizon Chase Turbo, which is the kind of very retro throwback racing game, which it's cool and I like it and I am having fun and I'm going to finish all the tournament races at least. But it does kind of get pretty repetitive. And the only, kind of like when I was talking about Overload, how like the difficulty kind of ramps up each level, sure. But it's not like done in a interesting or complex kind of way. It's more like, yes, the tracks get harder because there's more turns and it's easier to crash and the opponents get faster, but you also get to upgrade your car and you unlock new cars and that kind of thing. So it's kind of balanced out a bit. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking for in these sorts of games and why it doesn't feel satisfying, but I feel like there could just be a different way to up the difficulty that would be more satisfying, and I'm not really sure what that is. But I think of other racing games I've played, and usually you go up in like class of vehicles and stuff where, you know, a C-class vehicle is never going to beat an A-class, but by the time you get to race other A-classes, you've got access to A-classes yourself, and you can customize your vehicle in lots of different ways. So, you know, you might not have the fastest, but you might be good in the corners or, you know, vice versa or whatever. There are different things that you can do to kind of suit your playstyle and stuff. Whereas a game like Horizon Chase Turbo, it's so bare bones and simple that there's none of that. It's basically buy an upgrade when you can, and the upgrade will slightly improve, you know, a stat that you choose, whether it's speed or handling or something like that. But it doesn't seem to make significant enough differences to feel that obvious when you do something different. So, you know, as much as I am enjoying Horizon Chase Turbo at the moment, it's become kind of a bit of a sometimes game where if I'm in the mood, I'll pick it up and I'll play a few races, maybe even finish off a section, but it's not pulling me back going, oh, I must play this, I must finish it. It's just a fun kind of thing to do every now and then. So it's good. And I like that there's a lot of content as well. Like it's taking a while to actually get through all the races because there are a lot of them to get through, like in the tournament at least. But yeah, it's just lacking a bit. And I think the more you play it, the more you can kind of see where it's limited. And, you know, you get over the whole nostalgia thing and you kind of go, I see why newer games are better because they've got more complexity and nuance to everything that you do. So,
yeah, I'm trying to think. Well, I'm not like too into like racing games, and the only one that I'm really into is Mario Kart, which a party racing game in some regards. But it's still like, how do you balance difficulty? Like make like a progressive difficulty curve in a racing game.
I mean, yeah, Mario Kart, I think, and same with Horizon Chase Turbo, they're very casual, so they don't have that kind of balancing involved, as in more kind of closer to simulation kind of racing games and stuff. There's usually something called like a PI meter, or there's essentially a point value that you get, and so the way that it balances it is basically if you've got a car that all the parts and everything add up to say 200, that means you're in A class, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore you race other A class vehicles because they've got parts and everything that make up a point value that's roughly the same as yours.
Yeah.
But that could be vastly different because they might have built their car to be you really lightweight and like have big wheels, and that's where all their points are accumulated. Whereas you might have put all your points into having a bigger engine that's more powerful and can go faster, but you're still quite heavy and everything. So these sorts of, they're a bit of a payoff because even though you've got a bigger engine, your heavy car kind of will slow you down a bit. And even though they've got a lighter car, their smaller engine will slow them down a bit. So you kind of end up balanced in the middle anyway because your point values kind of meet up, even though you've got very different builds. And that tends to work quite well and is the case for a lot of racing games where, you know, if you upgrade your car and you go beyond a point threshold, it'll push you up into the next class of vehicles because it'll balance it out, as in saying, well, you should be in this higher class or lower class if you take it down low enough. Whereas like more casual stuff like Mario Kart or like Horizon Chase Turbo and stuff don't have that. So all you get is a basic kind of upgrade. Like I know in Mario Kart you've got the different like 100cc, 200cc or whatever vehicles. And that's about it really, I think, as far as differences go.
Yeah, in the case of Mario Kart, I'm gonna talk from Mario Kart 8's experience, mainly because that's the one I'm more familiar with. But you do have like an amount of customization, but it's not like you have tiers per se. Like in theory, like all the customization options are valid depending on your playstyle. So for example, I would usually go with well, in my case, like a motorcycle, because you can play with motorcycles or carts.
Yep.
And you have the weight of the character itself, which not only will slow you down if it's like a very big character, but also since in Mario Kart you're able like to crash others with little repercussions. If you have like a lighter character, it will like pretty much like bounce off the stage if you're not careful. Especially like in the zero gravity parts where you don't have the same traction as you have like in the non-zero gravity parts.
Yeah.
So a heavier character gives you more stability, but it is a lot slower. At the same time, you have like the overall speed of the vehicle. Like you are able to, like for example, you could have like a very speedy vehicle, but if the acceleration is not good, then you'll take a lot of time to reach like the maximum velocity of the car.
Yep.
You also have traction, that is so you don't fly off. Like it makes easier to drive, but also it gives you like the upper hand if you get off course, because if you go of the given path, you will get slowed down by the terrain outside. So I believe having more traction gives you like an extra second for you to come back and not lose like all your momentum. And what was the other one? I think there was like handling to make it easier to go through like the very tight corners and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then I think you have like an extra stat, but I don't quite remember. I think it was like for flying, because you can not fly, but like fall gracefully, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of like Horizon Chase Turbo. Like it's that very kind of casual end of racing games, and I like a casual game. Don't get me wrong, but if you think of all those different things you can change in Mario Kart, and then think how each one of them in another game, like in Forza or a more involved game, you might have, for each one of those things you mentioned, you might have, say, 20 different parts that you can change, and each part
Holy Jesus
has like 10 different options per part, and it all adjusts things slightly and does different things and all that kind of stuff. So even down to things like, if you change the drivetrain in your car from being like rear-wheel drive to front-wheel drive, that'll change how it drives. If you change it to four-wheel drive, you'll get more traction, but you won't get as much acceleration. So, there's all these things that you can do, and I think I'm just realizing that I prefer having all those options than not, because with Horizon Chase Turbo, as fun as it is, the upgrades are like, okay, you've upgraded your acceleration, so now you're a bit faster, or you've upgraded your handling, so now you can go around corners a bit better. Or the differences between cars are simply just, okay, this one's better at handling, this one's better at acceleration, this one's better at speed. So you're just taking these blanket kind of values that, don't really feel as satisfying to me as say, building a car in Forza where I've, tweaked with hundreds of little parts potentially, and, even change things like gear ratios and stuff to kind of adjust my acceleration because of how I've built my car, or, all those sorts of things, which are really getting into the nitty gritty. But, yeah, because of that, I feel like Horizon Chase Turbo is just kind of, its novelty wore off pretty quick, I would say. Because, there's not much else to do now that I'm kind of in the throes of the later game. But it's still enjoyable to pick up every now and then for a short time, so I'll probably make my way through it, but I don't think I'll be, sitting down to finish it and spending hours on the game anytime soon. So similarly, like, I've been playing Red Dead Redemption, the Undead Nightmare DLC, which I started a while ago, and I actually didn't pick it up for a while because I just, got onto other things. But this week I picked it up again, and there's something about it that, again, I'm following quests and stuff because that's the fun part, but there's a lot of repetition in it, which, this episode could be just me talking about how much I don't like repetition. Because one of the main mechanics of the game so far in Undead Nightmare, because it's basically a zombie mode for Red Dead Redemption, is that each town you go to is infested with zombies, and one of the objectives is to basically kill enough zombies in each town so that they're cleaned out and the locals can kind of start rebuilding stuff. And that's how you get quests and stuff as well, because the locals will come back and you can talk to them and they'll say, hey, I need something done, and you're like, off you go. So when I picked it up this week again, I played for maybe just an hour, but my whole playtime was just going from town to town, killing a number of zombies to free the town, and then going to the next one, killing a bunch of zombies to free the town, and then going to the next town and killing a bunch of zombies to free the town. And, by the time I was done, I was just like, I've killed enough zombies for one day.
Maybe for a lifetime.
Yeah, and fair enough. It is the zombie mode of Red Dead. Like, it's still good. It's just I need to remember to look at other things to do as well, rather than just going from town to town killing zombies, because then it'll actually be a bit more interesting. Like, one of the quests I did do was with a character called Seth, who's in the main game. And if anyone remembers Seth, they'll remember that he's the guy who basically was doing a lot of grave robbing. Like, he was digging up people from out of the ground. So in the zombie mode, funnily enough, he's like, having a good time. But it's a spoiler, but it's a minor thing. You find Seth basically in a hut on the river, and he's there playing cards with a zombie who turns out to be his friend who died, but came back to life. So he's got him just kind of tied up and standing in the corner of the room in front of this table holding like a hand of cards, while Seth is there on the other side, like talking to him and playing cards and things, and, having a great old time. And yeah, it's just, there's a lot of funny stuff like that, which is very, very Rockstar kind of writing, which the kind of thing they do in Red Dead and in Grand Theft Auto and stuff, are those like really kooky kind of funny characters that you meet along the way. And they have these tiny little stories that you can follow for a short time, and they're just really entertaining and a lot of fun and weird. So yeah, it still has that, which is kind of the main thing I'm enjoying about it. But I feel like I can finish that off pretty quick, and hopefully I will. But other than that, I've dived into the world of Mud Runner again, but kind of for the first time. I say again because I've played Spin Tires and I've played Snow Runner, but I've never played Mud Runner until this week, because I bought a bundle which had some racing games and stuff in it, and it had Mud Runner in it. And, I started playing it, and it's basically exactly the same as Spin Tires. So if anyone's not aware, there was this game once upon a time called Spin Tires, which was essentially a trucking game, but the whole gimmick of it was that this dude who made it had made this game with like amazing terrain deformation kind of physics. So you're basically driving these really kind of shitty old trucks through really muddy, dirty, wet, horrible environments where your trucks will kind of dig into the ground and like create grooves in the mud, and really get stuck in the mud if you don't kind of handle the physics properly. And you've got winches to kind of pull yourself out. And there's multiple versions of trucks, like you can pull other trucks out of the mud if you get stuck. And, you know, it's this real whole thing. But the main gimmick of it was this terrain deformation, because you have to really pick your path through the terrain and through different environments and stuff, because even if it's like a big open field, it might be quite boggy. And depending on the kind of truck you are and the kind of weight you're carrying and the kind of tires you have on your vehicle, you might get bogged and you might not find any way out. And, you know, so you might need multiple trucks to kind of pull each other out of different scenarios and all that kind of thing. And the game Spin Tires, which I played a lot of, was essentially almost like a tech demo. Like there was a series of maps, and on those maps were like, it was very bare bones. Like there was a number of trucks and stuff in the game, and the whole objective for any map was basically to deliver a certain amount of lumber, like wood, from a lumberyard to a mill. So they're probably on opposite ends of the map, and you have to make a couple of trips, but each trip is like really difficult, and it's more about the journey than the destination, because the real challenge of the game is getting through this harsh terrain and going off-road, or, you know, going through these super big muddy kind of areas and stuff that you have to kind of navigate and make decisions, and, you know, while you're managing your fuel and, you know, any damage you have to repair and all this kind of stuff. And it's a really challenging kind of fun game. But then something happened, and I've heard different rumors and reports about the game's development that I don't really know what's true. But essentially, at some point, the game was sold or bought out by another company, who then either released it as Spin Tires or released it as Mud Runner. I can't remember which, because Mud Runner is essentially the same game as Spin Tires. And I think Spin Tires is actually not on Steam anymore. Like, I don't think it has a a store page. But after playing Mud Runner now, it's essentially the same game with a few kind of added little bits. Like, there are some challenges and stuff, like get this to this location with this truck in this amount of time, or fulfilling these conditions, you know. Whereas Spin Tires was much more bare bones and kind of was more of a sandbox, kind of make your own fun. Mud Runner is trying to be a little bit more directive, and then Snow Runner is very much the next iteration of that, where there's lots of objectives, there's lots of different things to do. There's, you know, it's much more structured in that sense. Whereas it's really interesting playing Mud Runner because it's basically the same game as Spin Tires, and I'm already familiar with Spin Tires because I think I spent like 100 hours in it or something playing it. And so now playing Mud Runner, it's kind of like doing the same thing again, but it's different enough that it's kind of enjoyable again, because I like the game for starters. But there's also loads and loads of mods for these games on Steam. So for both Spin Tires and Mud Runner, there's loads of different vehicles you can download. There's different maps that people have made. It's very open to modding, which is kind of cool, because there's lots of interesting stuff that you can do with these games. And yeah, so I think there's something like 9 maps to complete, and I've completed 7 of them, I want to say. So I have another 2 left before I'm kind of done with Mud Runner. But yeah, it's really, to me, the whole development story is kind of interesting, because I'm not actually sure what happened, but it feels like someone somewhere got screwed, and then both parties ended up releasing the same game, even though they're slightly different, but they both had rights to it anyway. So they both kind of released it and both kind of made money off it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's kind of, because I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. It seems like Ovi, and I hope I'm not butchering this.
Yeah.
They licensed the game to Cyber Interactive after making like the original Spin Tires.
Yeah.
So Mud Runner is kind of considered to be like, it's, they say, some say like a spin-off sequel kind of thing.
It's
Maybe
really not,
because
though.
it's like it's like they took the game and did something to the game and sold it as a different game, pretty much.
Yeah, they kind of polished it a little, but it's exactly the same game. Like, it's the same
Oh,
maps, it's the same trucks, it's the same objectives. Like, it's literally the same game with a couple of
oh,
extra assets. Like, for example, on a lot of the maps in Mud Runner, in certain parts they've got boom gates, which you can't pass through if you're carrying lumber. So if you're trying to deliver wood somewhere, you have to choose a different route. Those boom gates are not in spin tires, so that's a difference. But it's like
yeah,
tiny. It's
a
not
very
enough
tiny
to,
difference.
if there was a copyright claim, it would be reasonable. But the reason I also wonder about that, because I thought that initially Spin Tires was like the original game, because that's especially Spin Tires was the name of the game that was very
Yeah,
first shown back in the day, and that's what got me interested in the whole thing. And then Mud Runner came later. But I think I wrote about Spin Tires on my blog, and I got a comment on Twitter from someone who I think was involved in the game and basically said, no, Spin Tires is not the original developer. The original developer had to leave and they went and made Mud Runner. But then I'm like, but everything I look at tells me that Spin Tires is the original game and Mud Runner is
yeah.
the quote unquote ripoff. Not that I necessarily think it's a ripoff, because there's obviously some weird contracting and licensing shit going on here that, no one really knows what the hell's happening. So I don't know. But all that aside, I kind of decide I don't really care. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm just going to play the games. And I wasn't going to play Mud Runner because I've already played Spin Tires and I knew it was very similar. But it's only because I picked it up in this bundle that I thought, hey, I'll give it a go because I like Spin Tires anyway. So I'll play Mud Runner and see what the deal is. And it's basically exactly the same game. So
Ta-da!
yeah. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I'm still enjoying it. I'm still going to finish playing it. I'm still going to play around with some mods and stuff. And I'm going to have a good time. And then I'm going to uninstall it and I'll be finished. So, yeah. Development stories and debacles aside, I do like Mud Runner. And I think it's kind of janky enough that I would tell anyone to go play Snow Runner instead. Because if it's your first kind of entry into this series, because I think SnowRunner is a much more polished and complete game, and it has better progression and objectives and all that kind of stuff for to follow. Whereas Mud Runner and Spin Tires are very much more just like a big sandbox where you drive trucks through the mud, and that's about it. So yeah, it's still very good though, and I'm enjoying myself. I do like it's kind of like the Euro Truck Simulator thing where everyone goes, that must be weird and why do people play that? But when you play it, you go, I know why people play this. Because it's just good fun. and
Yeah.
this is a bit like
Who would
that
have
too.
known that driving a truck was not trivial?
Exactly. And can actually be kind of fun and relaxing and enjoyable. So
Yeah.
obviously it's very different to real life, but hey, in a game, it's good. So there you go.
Ta-da!
Yeah. Let's head on to our discussion topic for the week, which is, of course, the game of the month. This month we have the regular game of the month, which is Valiant Hearts, and we have our Fool's Choice for April, which is Hatoful Boyfriend, which I believe you nominated, Pokepaw.
Still very surprised that it actually won. Like, holy crap.
And I'm sure there's lots to say about that. But first of all, let's talk about Valiant Hearts. Have you played it?
I haven't. I feel like I heard about it from either Rick or Alex on one of the past seasons of the podcast,
Yep.
but I did not know many things about Valiant Hearts. So
Well,
please,
if anyone has not heard about Valiant Hearts, it's essentially I want to say World War One game. It could be World War Two, but I'm pretty sure it's World War One. And it's a kind of, don't let this put you off, but it's kind of like an educational game because
Mhm.
it's the story of the game is based on correspondence and letters from actual veterans from World War One, and their stories and their experiences during the war. And it ranges from like, soldiers or nurses as well in hospital, and other characters in different professions and different people with different objectives, kind of thing, in the war. So on that front, it's very, very cool because it's very authentic, and it tells the story in a very realistic and meaningful way because it's basically based on truth. And I like that. And it's a very satisfying kind of arc as well because you play through a few different characters and everything, but they kind of cross over. Their stories kind of relate to each other a bit here and there. And so by the time you get to the end, you've gone through a lot of different scenarios with these characters, and you kind of care about them, and they've gone through different troubles themselves and perhaps gotten hurt or gotten better or, all that kind of thing. And then, you get to a resolution in the end. But the main gameplay is it's a 2D kind of cartoony looking game. So you're on a 2D plane, and the idea is you're often running around a battlefield or a area that's kind of under attack, and it's kind of light puzzling to get through without getting killed, essentially.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you might just be a delivery guy who's got to get a message to the other side of a battlefield. So your job is to kind of go around through trenches and stuff and try and avoid enemies. But to do that, you might have to, puzzle it out a bit and actually, make clever choices about where to hide and where to go in order to avoid getting caught and all that kind of stuff. And there's, a lot of variety in that and a lot of different things to do. But I don't really have heaps more to say on it other than if this sounds anything interesting to you, then I would definitely go play it because in my mind, it's a phenomenal little game. And it's just really nice to have some actually authentic stories get told. And kind of like we were talking about Venba before, how it's like cool to see stories which actually talk about things that are very real and that real people go through. This is kind of a nice war game in that sense where it's not just glorifying war. It's not just being like, yeah, check it out, let's go kill all the bad guys. It's actually telling true, authentic stories of what happened to people during the war and, what they actually went through. So, yeah, I think it's good in that sense and definitely worth playing.
Yeah. On that note, these aren't games, but I would recommend if you like these kind of storytelling based on like experiences. Well, one of them, I'm not sure they're based like any real experiences, but it's interesting nonetheless. It's Violet Evergarden, an anime about this girl that used to be like, she was trained for war, but now the war is over. So what does she do now?
Cool.
And the other one, and this is a very well-known one, is a Full Metal Alchemist, the manga, or Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, the anime, because I actually read the manga and went through all like the editor and the writer notes, and they actually went through and interviewed a lot of people that actually went to war to try to depict these experiences that she was trying to convey in the most respectful and realistic way possible. So if you like this kind of game, if you play this game in particular, like by Valiant Hearts, and you like that kind of stuff, I would totally recommend you go watch or read Full Metal Alchemist. Go with Brotherhood because the original anime diverges after a certain point. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna put this one on my wish list because I do enjoy seeing like all these stories being told and kind of like the mysticism of war, like being I don't know, like people like defogging that kind of thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
it takes a very from memory, because it's been a while since I played it, but I think it takes a very kind of European angle on the war as well. Like a lot of the characters are French or English, or from a more European side, not so much a kind of Call of Duty America fuck yeah kind of angle.
yeah.
Which is fun in its own right. But yeah, this is definitely going for authenticity and realism way more than most war games. So for that reason, it's interesting. And there's also a sequel which is available on Netflix games for anyone interested. I've downloaded it to my phone, but I haven't played it yet.
Beautiful. So is it like Valiant Hearts: The Great War, or is that the original? Is that the
Yeah, the full name is Valiant Hearts: The Great War, and the
Oh yeah,
sequel is
it is
Valiant
the
Hearts
game.
Coming Home.
Okay,
So yeah.
I'm gonna put that on my wish list then for whenever I have the money and the time.
Yeah,
Holy
and
Jesus!
yeah, it's just one of those games that it doesn't out it doesn't try to outdo itself. It just kind of sticks to what it's trying to do, and it does it well, and then it finishes, and you're done. And I really like
Nice.
that in games where it doesn't get bogged down in trying to be this amazing something that it's not. It just kind of it says, well, our strength is that we have authentic stories that we're trying to tell, so that's what we're going to focus on. And the rest is enjoyable, but it's not necessarily the most challenging game ever. You play it more for the story than anything else. And yeah, it's good. But then to something that you do play for the story and probably nothing else is Hatoful Boyfriend, which I think is interesting because I don't have much to say about it, so I'll shut up in a second and Paula will, go into depth, no doubt. But I've noticed a few people on the forums and on Discord and stuff talk about Hatoful Boyfriend and not enjoy it, mostly because I think it's mostly just not enjoying visual novels in general, because this is very
Yeah,
much a visual novel, and
through and through.
there's no other ways around it. Like, that's what it is. And so it's got all that kind of vibe to it. But I remember playing it and liking it because it was one of the first visual novels that kind of subverted expectations. Whereas nowadays it's more common, and we've seen it more and more with like Doki Doki
Doki
Literature
Doki.
Club.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of other games that do the same thing, even things like Undertale or whatever. Like, they subvert your expectations and have twists and turns and things that kind of fuck with you. And even though Hatoful Boyfriend doesn't do it to the same extent, I do remember it being one of the first games that I played where that kind of thing happened, and I really enjoyed that. So as much as I don't really remember much about the game, to be honest, because I played it like 5 years ago, I still remember enjoying it and having a good time. And yeah, take it away, Paula. Tell us
Yeah.
more.
I kind of wish you could replay this one like sometime in the future, so we could make like a proper spoiler cast about it, because of
Well, I'm
the
up for that.
yeah, because that's the subverted expectations part, kind of the part of the game.
Yeah.
So this game is originally developed by manga artist and writer Hatoful. She was her birthday was not too long ago over on Twitter, so she was asking people to send bird pictures.
Nice.
Just because it was a nice thing to do, and she really likes birds. So the original concept of the game was an April Fool's joke made like in a day, because like she was very interested in trying to make a game, but she was like, "Hey, I'm gonna start with a visual novel because that seems like the more easy thing to do for someone like me."
Mm-hmm.
And also the fact that visual novels do have visuals to accompany the story in a way that she was like more or less used to, and pretty much she needed in order to tell the story. Because she was a manga artist, so she was like, I need these visuals, please.
Yep.
She made it like as a parody of Otome game stereotypes of the time, and she picked birds because, well, she likes birds, and she actually, I think she has a pet bird at the time, which she based one of the characters on, Okosam. And she also wanted to use like stock pictures of birds, or pictures she took herself of birds, um, to pretty much focus fully on the story, on the writing and stuff like that.
Yep.
And also, this the original Hatoful boyfriend was mostly done by Hatomoa, but Damurushi helped with minor aspects of the script and art direction. And now that I have like the proper credits out of the way, I can go a little bit deeper into like what Hatoful boyfriend was supposed to be. So the thing is that she made this like as an April Fool's prank, and it was like, hey, this is actually something people want to know more of and want like a full story out of. So after 7 months, in which she mostly worked on this story, she released like the full version of Hatoful Boyfriend. And it was funny because like in some ways she kind of shot herself in the foot doing like the April Fool's prank, because she already had like aspects of the world like made up on that particular script. So she had to be consistent with what she did like in the final thing.
Yeah.
So she wanted to create something that seems ridiculous and crazy at first glance, but once you look into the world, you would fall into the depth. A kind of like you stare into the abyss and the abyss stares back kind of thing. So she resolved the darker elements of the plot on some of the routes, particularly on the VBL scenario, which I learned is supposed to be the bad boys love scenario.
Right.
So yeah, like she pretty much doubted whether or not this would turn out well, but in the end, she was like pretty happy with how the game turned out. And also like the the birds were like pictures either taken by her or like taken from stock pictures. And but for example, like the backgrounds were made like another media were made either by fans and were like some like fan submissions,
Yep.
or were again royalty free media. So she pretty much went into the I'm not doing any of this shit kind of route, which is very respectable, mainly because she really wanted to center in on the writing itself. There was a and also I think wasn't Matt or someone else who said like, hey, actually the bird cafe that is shown on the game is a thing in Japan.
Yes, that was
So it's
somewhere
a
on the
Kobe.
Discord. Yeah.
So like the Toremi Cafe, also located in Kobe or the Kobe Animal Kingdom. So some of the pictures she took were from those birds. And also another kind of funny thing about the development was how there were like many allusions on either on the names of the game or like the names of the birds. So for example, Hatoful boyfriend is kind of like a multi-layer pun because Hatofuru is heartful, but it also sounds phonetically identical to the Japanese pronunciation of hurtful because it is also Hatofuru.
Right.
So if you go through all the game and get to the VBL route, you also you unlock like the, you know how in the text box it always says like Hatoful boyfriend like in a corner. If you go to the VBL route, it says hurtful boyfriend.
Right.
And also, uh, well, in English, like the transliteration of Hatoful was kept mainly because Hachu being like pigeon or dove, and also because of Hatomoa having it on her name,
Oh, of course.
or like an artistic name. I don't know if it's her real name, but whatever. But some of the names of the of the birds I read were kind of funny because Ryota Kawara, which is the childhood friend of the protagonist, it's a rock dove, which is a Kawara Vato. So she took the Kawara and put it into its name. Nageki Fushiguru is a mourning dove, or a Nageki Vato, and Shuiwamine is a sugar partridge, or a Iwashako. So she took the Iwa and put it like in the name. And one that is like less obvious is the Kazuaki Nanaki, which is the very somnolent teacher, which is a Wachon Quail or a Hime Usura. And the kanji for Hime is present on Nanaki's last name. And it reads like Ki.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah, so she also makes like various references to real world things like bird pandemic, H5N1 pandemic. She also it seems like there's an actual blogger called Brian Pigeon, which is mentioned on Hatoful Boyfriend. And there are like many other things that are kind of like hinted at on Hatoful Boyfriend. And that's enough of the development of Hatoful Boyfriend because I do not want to bore any of you. But I found all that thing to be like quite interesting. And the thing about Hatoful Boyfriend, as the intent of Hato Moa was that you would kind of like be able to play the later routes and take it like a funny pigeon game. But if you wanted to really get into the game and really get into the lore and read the like archive notes that are unlocked after every route, you would get into the darker parts in the game, which, given how she made it, like I read a couple of people saying that she could have gone like even more cuckoo on like the silliness of the game. But in my opinion, it would have taken away from the actual meat and potatoes of the game, that was like all this world building that she'd done. And I am very sure that the people who are like very curious about some aspects of the game, for example, why does Hiyoko live in a cave, will be very satisfied by the end of the game because everything is kind of explained that way.
Nice.
So yeah, it's not like, oh, the best visual novel ever, but given that it's like a part of visual novel lore in the sense of this is one of the, if not the first subversion of what an Otome really is, I do feel like any Otome game fan would greatly appreciate, or at the very least, like find mild entertainment into this particular entry. But I really liked it, and going back and playing it from beginning to end and getting on the endings, I found like I found a new appreciation about the work made by Hatoma. First of all, because she made it all by herself in the beginning, though she did have like more help like in the remakes. But still, she did this on 7 months and really made like this April Fool's joke in a very in-depth thing that I wasn't expecting at all. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's all I have to say.
I'm just looking through a kind of ending guide to remind myself of some of the characters. And I think my favorite ending was, I want to say Shu Iwamine or Iwamine, or I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, because I think that was the kind of, without spoiling anything, like, yeah, it's It was the most interesting and kind of different to what I was expecting from memory.
Yeah,
It's the one I remember the most, so I feel like that's the one I enjoyed the most because I remember it more than others. So
definitely. I feel like that one in particular is like one of the first shocks of, hey, this isn't it
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
Kind of ending, yeah.
But I think because one of the things I like about Game of the Month on HLTB is it's apart from it being like a shared experience of lots of people playing the same game at the same time, I think it's a good way to kind of build an archive of games that are kind of classic and need to be played. Because if you look at the backlog of games that have been Game of the Months, most of them are pretty kind of almost essential playing, I would say, for any kind of gamer who wants to, really play the classics and all that kind of thing. And much like other Game of the Months, like playing Half-Life or other things where we're playing it long after the fact, it's easy to kind of pick it apart and go, well, this isn't that great because we've had many better games and all that kind of stuff. But I do think something like Hatoful Boyfriend is kind of important because, like we've said, it's kind of one of those very first games that really did subvert expectations and, kind of presents itself in this particular genre and being sticks to the genre very tightly, but then kind of does fuck with you a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think it's inspired lots of games after it to kind of do the same thing and take it even further and perhaps even do it better. But yeah, for that reason, I think it's very much a valid kind of Game of the Month and worth checking out just because.
Yeah, I'm just happy that I got it in there, even though as a fool's choice,
Yeah.
which again, I wasn't uh, like, I saw the thread and it was like, wait, the it actually won.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I would still love people to play like an actual Otome game that was like an Otome game through and through and didn't subvert expectations that way. But I'm a little bit dubious because it seems like a lot of people don't really like quote unquote pure or 100% visual novel experiences. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to be careful with this one. Maybe I could pick Jack Chen because it is a rhythm game. But anyway,
Well, and this is not to, not to cast shade on anyone who didn't enjoy the game, but
Mhm.
I do feel like visual novels, you either do like them or you don't. And I feel like a lot
Yeah,
of people who perhaps didn't enjoy Hatoful Boyfriend also mentioned that, they skipped a lot of text because they were kind of bored and it wasn't, and, that's what I mean. I'm not throwing shade or anything. It obviously wasn't engaging for them to read
yeah,
everything and stick to everything. But I feel like that's kind of like if I was, because the nature of the game, you kind of have to read everything. It's like if I read a book and just kind of skipped to the end of a chapter every now and then because I was getting a bit bored, I might miss out on some stuff.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, though, it's still not. That's what I mean. I really don't want people to feel like I'm having a go at them because I'm not. Because if you don't enjoy it, that's cool. You just don't enjoy it. But yeah, I feel like it's the kind of game where you can't just kind of skip through and still get the same experience because you do have to sit down and read everything and kind of go with the story to go with the places it's going to take you. And but yeah, that's not everyone's cup of tea, obviously. So
yeah. And even like as someone who really loves to play visual novel games, I do understand that sometimes if there's not something else that is grabbing you or keeping you invested, it is very difficult for you to go through a full visual novel. Now, for example, I do enjoy voiced visual novels more than non-voiced visual novels, mainly because I get a better feel of who the character is or how they interact with others.
yeah,
Um, so in that regard, like Hatoful Boyfriend doesn't have that thing that is like the voice acting of the game. So that could have maybe like given like a more like an extra cramp for someone to stay on at the very least, like listen to the whole line while reading the line of English text
yeah,
in the game. But also like I know that this one in particular, if you really are not into visual novels, this one isn't gonna change your mind.
True. Yeah, I don't think it would.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
There's others for that role, but this ain't it, Chief.
But this is still, I think, a significant kind of, if you're getting into the nitty-gritty of gaming history and stuff, I think this is a good one to kind of note, because it did kind of kick off that whole, or it was part of kicking off that whole, subverting genre expectations. So
Yeah,
even for that reason alone, I think it's interesting. But yeah, any final thoughts?
I don't think so.
All right, put your thinking cap on there, Paula. I'm gonna quiz you about a game, and I'm gonna see if you can guess it from the comment that I have ready for you to go right now.
Let's see.
I'm actually going, as usual, I'm going to blank a bit because, I'll give it to you later if we need to. But, okay, this game, for a main story, this player, has entered a time of 5 hours, and their comment says, base game, blank, 23 achievements out of 29, and 14 sigils.
14 what?
Sigils. I'll type it out
Can
for you.
Can you spell that? Yeah.
I'll type it in our chat so that you can see. Just getting rid of the blank bit.
Oh, sigils.
That's the one.
That should be telling me something. I know.
So their 5 hours was a bit long as well.
Oh, yeah. 5 hours is a bit long, so it's not.
The average is only 3 hours.
Oh crap! It is a very short game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I want to bang my head against the desk because I should know what this is. Sigils. It's a collectathon kind of thing. What's the name of the thing? It has a cat. A white cat, and it's like a platformer thing. Is it Notch?
It's not Notch.
Base game, blank. Is that an ending of sorts? It says 23 achievements out of 29. And that's throwing me off a little bit.
I think the blank is like the name of the campaign, I want to say, but I've removed it because it's in the title of the game.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know because I'm not too familiar with this game anyway, which might tell you something.
It has to be like a small PC game that I got on Steam or something like that. I completed on Steam, right?
Let me check.
Is that information you can give? Because I've completed a lot of stuff in Steam.
You've got it completed as PC, and I'm assuming then probably Steam. Yeah.
Okay. It was probably before the not the platform, the storefront was added to HLTB.
This is true. I believe it was.
What the fuck are sigils?
From further reading, I think there's about 31 sigils to collect, and that person did 14. Could be wrong though, because I'm just kind of putting together other comments to get more data.
It doesn't sound like it, but is it Luna's Fishing Garden?
It is not.
I'm really digging into my brain for this one. Holy crap!
It could be a bit of a curly one, I think.
A what? A curly one?
That's an expression to say it's like it's difficult.
Oh, I see. Okay, give me a second clue because I'm not getting from that one.
Okie dokie. I'm tossing up between two. One of them may definitely give it away. The other one is probably a bit too vague.
Yeah, in the meantime, I'm trying to guess before you give me the other clue.
Okay, I'm going to give you one that may give it away straight away. But I'm kind of banking on the fact that you might not remember this game very well.
Okay.
This person did main and sides.
Mm-hmm.
They took 7 hours, which again was long.
Okay.
Because the average for main and sides is 4 hours.
Okay.
But their notes say that they included the bonus chapter called Princess and the Dragon.
Princess and the Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell is this?
I can tell you that your completion was a main story completion only, and you took 2.5 hours. And you rated it 4 out of 5, which is pretty good.
Princess Dragon. Is this like Princess Maker or something like that?
Nope.
What is this? Like it says it has a bonus chapter, which seemingly I didn't do. Is it like a point and click game?
In a way, but it's not a point and click adventure.
Okay.
I will tell you it was released in 2014.
Huh.
And it's on Switch, PC, PS4 and Xbox One. Which actually surprised me. Because I thought it would only be on PC, but there you go.
I am very surprised as well. The sequels thing is the thing that's putting me off like real bad, and the extra chapter.
It's very much the kind of game that you'd probably pick up in a bundle, I want to say.
What's the name of this thing? like I do remember some games having like extra chapters, but we not even like bothering with them. But I'm not sure it's that one. But I know I played a lot of them on PC, but I don't remember the name of the games.
I think
there were like...
No, go on.
There were like kind of like hidden object games on, and they had like this uncanny valley art style to them. And one of them I do remember battling like not battling per se, but dealing with a minotaur.
You might be on the right track.
What was the name of this game, for fuck's sake? In one particular game, I do remember very vividly that there was like an extra chapter, but I don't remember the name of the game. I do remember like some kind of cage that led to somewhere else. Could that have something to do with the dragon thingy?
I will say you completed this in January 2020.
Yeah, it sounds like one of those then, because I completed a bunch of them in January of 2020 or February of 2022. I do remember, like, I could like look at the stats and I know there's like a bunch of games that I finished on January 2020. Oh, for fuck's sake, I cannot remember the name of the game. It has a Scarlet in the title.
Has what, sorry?
Scarlet?
No.
Something about a swan then?
There is something about a swan.
Oh, is it the second one?
So there's 2 parts to the title. If you get one of them, I'll give it to you. And the second part is the part that I blanked out of the first clue.
Yeah. Something about this one. Yeah, I do remember. I don't remember the fucking title.
Time is ticking.
Something like Mystery Files?
No, but I know that game and in the same wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Do you remember the developer of those hidden object games?
I do not.
Because that might be a clue as well, because it's a clue for me. So
Swan.
Yeah, any more clues, I'm gonna have to bust you down to 1 point.
Yeah, I don't want that. Oh, I hate this so much. Like, I have it like on the tip of my tongue. What was Swan? It's not Swan Song. Swan. Is it Swan Song? No.
No. Close, but no.
Swan Dance? I don't know. Song of the Swan. Flight of the Swan.
You got kind of close with that last one.
Symphony of the Sun. Song of the Swan.
And you're so close.
I know I'm so close because I can feel it.
Were you gonna say Bowls of the Swan?
Huh?
It sounded like you're about to say Bowls of the Swan.
Not balls, but balls, like.
Oh.
A waltz, I don't know. Ballet of the Sun. Oh, this is stupid. How can I not remember it?
We're gonna have to go down to 1 point.
Yeah, I have to.
So this one, we'll give it away to you, hopefully. Because, and this was my original plan, so I'm not changing anything because of what you've said. But all the completionist comments say all STEAM achievements, all STEAM achievements, all achievements, all STEAM achievements. So they're not very useful. So instead, I'm going to fill in that blank for you from the first one, which doesn't give away the entire title, but it basically gives you part of the title.
Okay.
So I'm going to paste it again in our chat. But the quote again is base game, Song of the Swan, 23 achievements out of 29, 14 sigils. And yes, to add to that and make it a better clue...
I did say Song of the Swan.
That's not the title, though. It's close, but it's not the title. This is a hidden object game. It's by Artifacts Mundi, who have done a number of hidden object games that all look the same, and you can pick up in bundles very frequently.
Yeah,
in fact, I have this game in my backlog because I picked it up in a bundle somewhere. And you are very much on the money with the kind of game and the type of game. It's just the title that eludes you, I think.
Mystery of the Swan?
Nope. Think of Song of the Swan, but it's a type of swan.
Oh, Black Swan?
Not quite.
No? A type of swan.
If you get the main title of this is part of a series, I'll give that to you as well.
A type of swan.
It's Song of the something swan.
Oh.
Really?
Song of the White Swan then?
No, not exactly. I'm trying to give you as much as I can without actually giving it to you.
Like Song of the Royal Swan or something like that.
No. I mean, I do feel like you're getting close enough that it's worth a point because, you know, it's just one of those titles. I think it's not quite landing for you.
Yeah, it's not landing for me at all.
So if I tell you this is a Grim Legends game.
Oh, is it Grim Legends? Is it the second one or the third one?
It's the second one?
The second one, yeah. It is the second one, yeah.
Grim Legends 2, Song of the Dark Swan.
That was so fucking close. I'm gonna cry.
That's what I mean. I couldn't really give anything more without actually spelling it out. So,
yeah.
Just a memory lapse there, I think. Like, you knew the game, the title was eluding you.
Yeah, because I played so many of these.
See, that's where, you never know with these, because, I don't know. It's hard to tell whether it's obvious or not. But we got there in the end.
We got here, yeah. Actually, I'm gonna go very quickly to a profile to make confessions to, like, you said it was January 2022?
January
No,
30th.
2020.
Yeah, January 30th, 2020.
How long?
And for those paying attention, that brings Paula up to 16 points against my 12. So still, a good couple of games difference between us, because the most we can earn is 3. So at most I could get 1 away from Paula at this stage. Otherwise, yeah.
Yeah. I finished 6 games in January that month, that year, I say. So some of the games that I finished were Grim Legends: The Forsaken Bride, Grim Legends 2: Song of the Dark Swan, Grim Legends 3: The Dark City. I also finished The Mythseekers: The Legacy of Vulcan. That was my other option.
Damn. And that was...
And I'm pretty... Yeah, I was like on a hidden object kick on that month.
Yeah, nice. I'm just looking at my own January of 2020, and apparently I finished 14 games, which is fun.
Those are a lot of games.
I think that, yeah, you can tell the pandemic happened that year, because later in the year, like in October, I finished 30 games. So obviously wasn't doing much that month.
Yeah, it happened. It happened to me too.
So yeah.
Yeah. I also played the Endless Fables games 3 and 4 in December.
Nice.
So yeah, I was really in a kick of those games. I probably got them like in a bundle or something.
Yeah, there's been a number of like Artifacts Mundi bundles with a bunch of hidden object games in them. And they're decent enough games. Like, they're well put together. They're just kind of the same game repeated, that's all. But yeah.
True.
Well, I just also would like to add at this stage in the podcast, before we close off and say goodbye, I've also been playing, and I know Paul has been playing a bit of as well, How Long to Beat the Game on howlongtobeat.com/play, and Everdread has updated it with power-ups and new scoring system and all this kind of stuff. So definitely go check it out. It's a lot of fun, and check out the forum thread and the Discord, because everyone's sharing their scores and how well they did and their different strats and stuff. And it's really good. It's a lot of fun. And kudos to Everdread for putting it together. Like, I know he's been having a lot of fun with it as well as a side project, but yeah, it's really cool seeing it be built and develop over time. So it's a good little fun thing to play.
So, well then, without further ado, we say goodbye to this lovely podcast for today. I am not losing my mind at all.
It's been a week, but
It's been a week.
Thanks everyone for tuning in and listening as always. And yeah, see you on the next one.
Bye-bye. Who would have known that driving a truck was not trivial?